Hypothalamus Artificial Intelligence, HI, and Research Center for Advanced Decision Technologies, RCADT, a division of HI. Digital transformation powered by real-time autonomous and intelligent algorithms. Present the conference. Nonconvex Generalized Bender's Decomposition. The material of conference was organized by the engineer Jesus Velasquez Bermudez, Ph.D. Since its formulation in 1962, the researchers in Bender's theory, BT, have proven that BT is an effective methodology to solve complex problems that cannot be solved using only best basic optimization algorithms, Plex, Gurobi, Express. Algorithms based in Bender's theory can solve NP-hard, non-deterministic polynomial time problems in reasonable time. For this type of problems, BT has proven to be an effective methodology to solve complex problems that cannot be solved using best mathematical solvers. BT is a mature methodology that is in the accelerated growing phase, and there is a gap between the research in mathematical programming and the application of the large-scale methodologies in real-world solutions. This presentation focuses on Bender's theory for discrete subproblems. This presentation focuses on Bender's theory for nonlinear subproblems. Generalized Bender's decomposition. Nonlinear subproblems. Arthur M. Geoffrion was born in Brooklyn, New York, and grew up on Long Island in an idyllic Manhasset neighborhood. He attended 3 small private schools prior to going off to Cornell University, where he chose to major in mechanical engineering to keep the door open to taking over the family business. There he joined a fraternity and learned to fly. In his junior year, of the 5-year program, he discovered the then emerging field of operations research through Professor Andrew Schultz Jr. when he found out that it was possible to make many kinds of difficult decisions optimally, and to defend them fully with data and mathematics. He was sold. Thereafter he took all the OR-oriented courses he could, staying an extra semester to take a Master of Industrial Engineering on 1961. The siren song of OR was irresistible and off he went to Stanford, having been persuaded by Professor Gerald Lieberman, who was on leave at Columbia University, to choose Stanford over Berkeley. He is the author of more than 60 published works, initially on mathematical programming and its applications, including topics in decomposition techniques for special structures, duality, integer programming, Lagrangian relaxation and multi-criterion optimization. He is author of more than 60 published works, initially on mathematical programming and its applications, including topics in decomposition techniques for special structures, duality, integer programming, Lagrangian relaxation and multi-criterion optimization. His theoretical and algorithmic research soon led to a desire to test new methods on real data and to seek new research challenges from problems faced by industry, which led to a series of consulting engagements mainly in distribution and production. In 1978 he co-founded Insight Incorporated, a management consulting firm specializing in optimization-based applications in supply chain management and production. From early in his career, Geoffrion was an active member of the Operations Research Society of America, ORSA, and the Institute of Management Sciences, TIMS, both editorially and otherwise. He served as the 28th president of TIMS in 1981-82, establishing the TIMS Management Science Roundtable, today known as the Informs Roundtable, to address the needs of practitioners of OR/MIS in 1997. He served as the 3rd president of the Institute for Operations Research and the Management Sciences, Informs. In 1970 Geoffrion published Generalized Bender's Decomposition Approach, called GBD, to solve a broader class of programs in which the parameterized subproblem need no longer be a linear program. Nonlinear convex duality theory was employed to derive the equivalent master problem. In GBD the algorithm alternates between the solution of relaxed master problems and convex nonlinear subproblems. GBD considered the optimization problem P, composed of 2 types of variables, y, corresponding to the variables of coordination, complex, variables, and x, corresponding to the coordinated, slave, variables. To converge, GBD constricts the model to a convex problem for any value in this space that can be continuous or discrete. The problem P can be divided into 2 subproblems, one on complex variables and the other on coordinates. If theta of y is defined as the optimal value of the objective function corresponding to the problem on slave variables for a given value of the complex variables, it is possible to formulate an equivalent coordination problem, psi. Vy is an estimator of the Lagrange multiplier evaluated from the subproblem. Consider the Lagrangian function of the subproblem, defined in such a way that the Lagrange multipliers correspond to the derivative of the objective function with respect to the resource vector. Where π corresponds to the vector of Lagrange multipliers, dual variables, which according to the KKT conditions must be positive and equal to the gradient of the objective function with respect to the resource of the equation. For an optimal value of the subproblem, SPY, it is true that at that point the Lagrangian is maximized with respect to the slave variables. In addition, mathematical conditions can be written based on Lagrange's theory. The subproblem can have three possible solutions: unlimited, feasible and optimal, and not feasible. In the case of an unbounded solution, it can be concluded that the original problem P also has an unlimited solution. In case of a feasible and optimal solution, the subproblem provides information to generate an optimality cut in the feasibility zone of y, then the values of y that cannot be optimal are eliminated. The nonlinearity of the subproblems implies that the Lagrange conditions must be established simultaneously considering the dual and primal variables of the subproblem, which is not the case with linear subproblems, which only require cuts based on the dual variables. In case there is no feasible solution to the subproblem, then a cutoff of unfeasibility should be included for reasons related to the relationship between the feasible zones. The image presents the formulation of GDB in Chapter 2 of Velasquez's book. GBD sends the coordinator information about the primal variables and the dual variables. Bender's standard method only conveys information about the dual variables. GBD can be applied to a built-in subproblem or to a subproblem with multiple issues in the same hierarchy. The rules for decomposition are similar to the principles considered in Bender's standard decomposition. The image shows the GBD algorithm written by Geoffrion in 1972. The diagram presents the GBD algorithm, describing the sequence of steps to establish the feasibility and the optimality cuts. Three problems are used in the process. Primal, which if feasible produces cuts due to optimality, updating the upper bound. Feasibility, that generates information for the cutoff by feasibility, and the relaxed master, which sets the limit for the lower bound. As noted, GBD manages two types of cutting: optimality cutting planes, and feasibility cutting planes. By incorporating the cuts into the sequences of the coordination problem, the cycle of operations is closed. Nonconvex generalized Bender's decomposition. Case: Basin of Amu Darya River, Uzbekistan. Kai et al., in 2001, published the paper Solving Large Nonconvex Water Resources Management Models Using Generalized Bender's Decomposition, Applied GBD to Solve Nonlinear Nonconvex Programming, NLP, problems that frequently arise in water resource management, such as reservoir operation, groundwater remediation, and integrated water quantity and quality management. These problems are usually large and dispersed. The software that existed in 2001, for global optimization, could not cope with problems of this size, while local solvers, such as GAMS, with Minus or Canopt, cannot guarantee a global solution. Kai et al. Implemented GBD using a cutting approach proposed by Flautas et al. 1989, 1995, introducing dummy slack variables and penalizing their activation in the objective function. If the complicating variables are carefully selected, GBD leads to solutions with excellent objective value at much lower execution times than GAMS using a nonlinear solver. GBD can be used to search for at least approximate global solutions to models with nonlinear and nonconvex constraints. The river basin water allocation and salinity control model used in this paper was developed by McKinney et al. In 1997, for the Karshi region of the Amu Darya River basin of Uzbekistan. It is used to support water allocation decisions with multiple goals, including satisfying water demand, maintaining river flow for ecological protection, balancing water use rights among demand sites, and controlling salinity. The network used to model this basin includes 6 reservoirs, 6 aquifers, 8 river reaches, 2 canals, 7 agricultural drainage water collectors, and 10 demand sites, such as irrigation, municipal, and industrial water demand. There are 12 monthly time periods. When salt concentrations are included in the objective, the model instance has 1,567 constraints, 2039 structural variables, not including the deviation variables, and 9,129 non-zero Jacobian elements, of which 4,773, the 52%, are non-constant. Hence this model is highly nonlinear, due to the presence of 540 nonlinear salt balance constraints. There are 1,499 complicating variables Y, 540 salt concentrations, and 540 coupling constraints. The storage of each reservoir and aquifer is divided into constant dead storage and variable active life storage. Only life storage can be used, so these only appear in the water balance equations. However, salt balance equations for reservoirs and aquifers involve both types of storage, so they contain terms in which this constant volume of storage is multiplied by varying concentrations of salt. Therefore, these salt balance equations contain linear terms, and the objective term also introduces a linear term into the Lagrangian. These terms degrade the performance of GBD, because they would force optimal flows and stores to move further away from their initial values, those that optimize the part of the model without including salt concentrations. If a monolithic problem is nonconvex, implying that it has multiple local optima, and that if it is to be solved a global solver, such as barren, must be used. An advantage derived from GBD decomposition is that when the problem is separated, it can become 2 convex problems, which is a major advantage. Since the 2 problems, master and subproblem, are convex, they can be solved with greater computational efficiency using a nonlinear convex solver, such as minus or conup, turning the nonconvex problem into a convex one. This case can be visualized in this example. As shown in the table, 4 cases were configured, representing the growing distance from the best situation. Case 1 is the best for GBD, and the 4th is the worst. In each case, we first solve the problem using GBD and then, using the final GBD solution as a starting point, we solve it using -5, and separately conup 2. In all GBD runs, the initial values are calculated by solving the master program, relaxing the optimal flow solution without cuts. In cases 1 and 2, despite the excellent starting points, -5 and conup 2 were unable to improve the first 4 significant figures of the final GBD values, so this value is at least locally optimal within the predetermined tolerances. There are slight improvements in cases 3 and 4, confirming the hypothesis that these cases are less favorable for GBD. Academic experiments concluded that GBD can be used to search for at least approximate global solutions to models with nonlinear and nonconvex constraints. The Table 2 shows the comparison. The mean speedup of GBD is 23.0 to minus and 5.2 to conup. The following notes should be considered. Case 4 to 1, initial Y values obtained by solving the GBD master program with no cuts, and cases 4 to 2, 4 to 3, 4 to 4 use 3 sets of ballpark initial guesses. The computational time is defined as the resource usage in the GAMS output file. The time unit is seconds. It is evident that GBD is more effective than either of the 2 solvers, and that conup 2 is more effective than -5. The average ratio implies that GBD is 6.39 times faster than conup 2 and 22.66 times faster than -5. -5 is used as the LP solver, but if -5 is replaced by OSL, the number of iterations does not change significantly. For the model with 24 complicating variables, the number of iterations is 155 for -5, and 137 for OSL, but the total computing time is reduced to about 25% of the -5 time. The image shows the GBD lower bound, LBD, and upper bound, UBD for the problem in case 4 of Table 1. The figure shows the lower bound, upper bound, and penalty cost versus iteration for the model with 12 complicating variables. In this case, the penalty cost on the slack variables goes to 0, the upper bound always decreases, and the lower bound fluctuates until shortly before the penalty reaches 0, increasing thereafter, until it reaches the upper bound. The final solution converges to 18.05 at iteration 35. Figure shows the upper and lower bounds versus iteration for two sets of initial values for the total reservoir heads in all time periods. In the first scenario, the initial values for elevation in all 12 periods are 836 meters, which corresponds to the dead storage of the reservoir. In the second, the initial values are all 880 meters, which corresponds to the full storage of the reservoir. In both scenarios, the difference between the two limits is considerable until around iteration 13, when it narrows sharply as the lower limits improve, and then slowly converges to zero in iteration 37. All scenarios converge to the same final value, 18.05. Figure shows the upper and lower bounds versus iteration for two sets of initial values for the total reservoir heads in all time periods. Figure shows the lower bound, upper bound, and penalty cost versus iterations for the model with 24 complicating variables. Here convergence is much slower, requiring about 155 iterations, with computation time increasing accordingly. The penalty weight, m, also strongly affects GBD convergence and computing time. The final solution converges to 18.77 at iteration 155. Figure shows that, for weights of 1 and 10, the penalty cost converges to 0, while for m equal to 0.1 it converges to 1.6. The image shows the upper limit versus iteration for the reservoir operation model with 24 complicating variables using various penalty weights. The figure shows the effect of the penalization on the convergence of GBD. The case with penalty weight, m, equal to 0 converges faster, while GBD does not converge for m equal to 0.01. Here convergence is much slower, requiring about 155 iterations, with computation time increasing accordingly. The penalty weight, m, also strongly affects GBD convergence and computing time. Conclusions. Using a relaxed formulation of GBD subproblems and a sufficiently large penalty weight, GBD has performed well in solving the large non-convex bilinear problems studied here. For the water allocation and salinity control model, GBD solution quality is comparable to that of -5 or CONOPT2, and GBD is considerably faster. GBD can be used to advantage in conjunction with these or other local solvers, using the final GBD solution as a starting point. -5 and CONOPT2 were able to improve this solution to a small extent. For reservoir operation models, the GBD calculation time increases as the number of complicating variables goes from 12 to 24, but in both cases, the calculation time of the GBD is less than that of -5 and CONOPT2. However, experience with water allocation models indicates that GBD can handle approximately 1,500 complicating variables. Analysts considering using GBD to solve nonlinear problems should carefully consider which variables are designated as complicating and consider inverting the natural allocation, which attempts to minimize the number of these variables. Experiments with the water allocation and salinity control model show that, compared to -5 and CONOPT2, the final GBD results are less sensitive to the starting point. In summary, the approach presented can be used to look for at least approximate global solutions to models with nonlinear and non-convex constraints. Computing time depends on the model size, the model structure, and the selection of complicating variables in the GBD formulation. Nonconvex Generalized Bender's Decomposition. Case, Sarawak Gas Production System. The paper Stochastic Separable Mixed Integer Nonlinear Programming via Nonconvex Generalized Bender's Decomposition, NGBD, considers deterministic global optimization of scenario-based, two-stage stochastic mixed integer nonlinear programs, MINLs, in which addresses problems where functions are nonconvex but separable in integer and continuous variables. It decomposes large-scale stochastic problems into smaller, more tractable subproblems, exploiting nonlinear duality to generate cut. A variation based on GBD, called Nonconvex Generalized Bender's Decomposition, NGBD, is developed to obtain optimal solutions of stochastic MIMPs in finite time. The dramatic computational advantage of NGBD over state-of-the-art global optimizers is demonstrated through the computational study of several engineering problems, where a problem with almost 15000 variables is solved by NGBD within 80 minutes of solver time. NGBD addresses problems where functions are nonconvex but separable in integer and continuous variables. It decomposes large-scale stochastic problems into smaller, more tractable subproblems, exploiting nonlinear duality to generate cut. Information has been taken from the presentation made by Paul Barton, who analyzed the case of the Sarawak gas production system. In chemical engineering and operations research, the stochastic pooling problem is an extension of the classic pooling problem. It involves designing and operating networks, such as gasoline blending, natural gas production and transportation, water treatment, where the quality and flow of materials are tracked through intermediate tanks, or pools. A two-stage stochastic mixed integer nonlinear program, MINLP, used to manage uncertainty in demands, supplies, or prices. The structure of the problem is: first stage, design decisions, such as which feed tanks, pools, and pipelines to build, and second stage, operational decisions, recourse, such as flow rates and split fractions, made after uncertainty is realized. The presence of bilinear terms, such as flow, concentration, makes it nonconvex and computationally difficult to solve globally, often addressed by decomposition methods that relax bilinear terms into linear programs to find optimal solutions. In 2025, Sarawak's gas production system has entered a new regulatory and operational era, characterized by the acquisition of state-owned Petroleum Sarawak Berhad, Petros, as the state's sole gas aggregator. Sarawak is Malaysia's largest gas producer, accounting for approximately 61% of the country's total natural gas production. The Sarawak gas production system is a vast offshore and onshore network, supplying gas from fields like Halong and Timi to Bintulu's LNG facilities for export, while also increasingly serving domestic needs for power and industrial growth under the Sarawak Gas Roadmap. That is a master plan leading Sarawak's energy transition to bring gas throughout Sarawak for economic growth. It's characterized by complex offshore platforms, like the unmanned, solar-powered Timi platform, extensive subsea pipelines, advanced optimization models like the Smart Gas Production System, SGPS, and a strategic shift towards greater state control to fuel local industries and meet Vision 2030 goals. The key components and features are: offshore production. Gas is extracted from numerous offshore blocks using platforms, often featuring advanced tech like unmanned operations and renewable energy sources. Bintulu Hub, a central onshore processing facility in Bintulu for LNG export and domestic supply. Pipelines, an extensive network connects offshore fields to onshore facilities, with new lines expanding local access. Smart System, SGPS model, an integrated model optimizing production, scheduling shutdowns, and managing gas flow to meet contractual demands. Domestic Focus, a strategic push to increase gas for Sarawak's own industries, power plants, and the SCORE development corridor. For operational planning, the SGPS model is used to optimize production, schedule shutdowns, and manage gas flow to meet contractual demands. The key features are: optimized delivery, balance pressure and flow across multiple production sharing contracts. Blending, manage CO2 and H2S levels to ensure gas meets onshore specifications. And forecasting, run simulations for 90-day and 2-year maintenance and production windows. The Sarawak gas production system is composed of the following subsystems: natural gas production system, pump network, oil refinery, pharmaceutical product launch, and energy polygeneration plant. The image shows the diagram of the characteristics of the Sarawak gas production system. Daily production, 4 billion SCF, and annual revenue, 5 billion of American dollars, equivalent to 4% of Malaysia's GDP. In the pharmaceutical business processes, the following steps must be carried out: new molecular entity, drug discovery, preclinical trial, clinical trials, and FDA. Product launch planning is made under clinical trial uncertainty, the time in approximately 5 years. Product launch planning is made under clinical trial uncertainty, the time in approximately 5 years. Product launch planning includes preclinical trial, clinical trials, and FDA, and should consider the uncertainty of the clinical trial. Each drug can have only 1 out of 4 possible outcomes. These are I, F, 2F, 3F, and 3P. The ratio of test failure I, F, 2F and 3F, and success is I, P, 2P, 3P. The outcomes are P, I, P2 and P3, and are known a priori. The results of interest in the planning of the product launch is P3. Polygeneration is a novel conversion process. Multiple feedstocks and multiple products, multiple processes with strong synergy and a single plant, flexible product portfolios in response to market conditions. Inputs, coal, and biomass. Outputs, electricity, petroleum products, and chemicals. The image shows a diagram of the polygeneration plant. Starting from a pharmaceutical supply chain, comprised of supplier, integrated production, distribution center, retailer, and customer. Some of the decisions that need to be made are: in investment, what new facility to build or expand? How much is the capacity expansion? In operation, how much to produce? How much to store? These decisions are conditioned by the expected value of random demand. The stochastic pooling problem has an objective economic function. The restrictions are mass balances, flow constraints, and topology constraints. Mass balances include nonconvex bilinear terms to model the qualities of gases. The general characteristics of the model are: generalized pooling model to track gas flow qualities throughout the system. Two-stage stochastic framework to address uncertainty explicitly. Stochastic pooling problem formulation that combines generalized pooling model, stochastic framework, and large-scale MILP. The following specific restrictions should be considered: strict specifications on gas products, H2S, CO2, GHV, etc. Large uncertainty in the system quality and capacity of reservoirs, customer demands, etc. The traditional deterministic linear model is not adequate. The figure details the reformulation of the original stochastic MILP into a collection of subproblems through convexification, projection or dualization, restriction and relaxation. It summarizes these subproblems and the way to obtain them. The subproblems in boxes with dashed lines are the intermediate subproblems for the reformulation which are not solved directly in NGBD. The subproblems in boxes with solid lines are solved directly in NGBD by calling appropriate optimization solvers, including relaxed master problem and feasibility relaxed master problem, decomposed primal bounding subproblems and feasibility subproblems and decomposed primal subproblems. Notice that the sizes of all the subproblems to be solved are independent of the number of the scenarios addressed by the original problem. Next, the important properties of the subproblems derived in this section will be outlined and discussed via a set of propositions. Based on these results, the NGBD algorithm is developed. Two-stage stochastic programming is characterized by a two-stage decision process. Design decisions: they must be implemented here and now and are the important decisions for the decision maker. They are typically binary variables to determine whether potential gas wells, or reservoirs, gas platforms, and pipelines are developed, and continuous to fix installed capacity. Examples: when to build a new facility, and when to expand an existing facility. Operational decisions, which are simulations of what may happen and are used to calculate future costs. They are continuous variables to determine rates of the gas flows throughout the network in long-term operation. Examples: when, where, and how much to produce, store, and supply. Uncertainty realizations are related to random parameters that affect the system environment, for example, reservoir quality, customer demand, and gas price. The two decision stages are linked by the decision-making tree in which, for each branch, the probability of a random scenario is fixed. In this way, the expected net present value of the investment plus the expected cost of the operation, which is the company's objective, is calculated. The objective is the optimal network design and long-term operational policy of the Sarawak gas production system to maximize profitability and satisfy product-specific constraints for all addressed uncertainty scenarios. Depending on what the problem matrix looks like, two different decomposition philosophies are available. Dual angular matrix, oriented to decompose by variables. The available methodologies are Bender's decomposition or L-shaped method, linear duality generalized Bender's decomposition, nonlinear duality nonconvex generalized Bender's decomposition. Angular matrix, oriented to decompose by constraints. The available methodologies are Dantzig-Wolff decomposition, linear duality Lagrangian relaxation, nonlinear duality. GBD can be considered the application of the concepts presented by Geoffrion for the design of large-scale mathematical programming techniques. The framework includes two groups of concepts: problem manipulations and solution strategies. Problem manipulations, including projection, dualization, inner linearization and outer linearization. They are mathematical tools for reformulating a problem into an alternative form more susceptible to solution. The result is called the master problem and includes optimality and feasibility cuts. GBD subproblems generated via restriction and relaxation. Although the number of decision variables in the master problem, MP, is independent of the number of scenarios in the original problem, MP is still difficult to solve directly due to the infinite number of constraints. MP then relaxes, giving rise to a relaxed master problem, with a finite number of constraints. The traditional GBD iteration is applied to the convex problem of the lower bound instead of the original problem, which not only produces a sequence of valid lower bounds for the original problem, but it also gives clues to construct a sequence of primal subproblems that provide valid upper bounds for the original problem. Convexification, or convex relaxation, is related to the lower bound problem that seeks to set the limit for the lower bound due to the global nature of optimization. This is done through the relaxed master problem. Since the problem P is separable into continuous and discrete variables, the feasible regions can be characterized individually, in continuous and discrete. Therefore, it is enough to replace the nonconvex functions in problem P with their convex relaxations to obtain a lower bounding problem. Branch, bound, and fathom is a powerful optimization technique, especially for discrete problems, that systematically explores solutions by branching, dividing the problem into subproblems. Bounding, estimation of the best possible solutions to subproblems, and fathoming, prune unpromising branches, and find the overall optimum without an exhaustive search. In this case, the orange zone is removed as a possible zone with the solution. Convex relaxation not equal to convex approximation. Most practical problems can be relaxed using the McCormick approach. Standard optimization techniques cannot distinguish between suboptimal local minimums. The image shows the generalized Bender's decomposition algorithm flowchart, in which are involved three problems: primal problem, feasibility problem, and relaxed master problem. The situation that the lower limit is greater than the upper limit is an indicator of optimality, if equal, and of non-feasibility otherwise. GBD subproblems generated via restriction and relaxation. Although the number of decision variables in the master problem, MP, is independent of the number of scenarios in the original problem, MP is still difficult to solve directly due to the infinite number of constraints. MP then relaxes, giving rise to a relaxed master problem, with a finite number of constraints. Gaps due to dual and convex relaxations. It is very difficult to obtain optimal dual solution for a nonconvex primal. Lagrange multipliers follows in the context of duality theory where they are called geometric multipliers instead. This definition is consistent with the one used by Geoffrion, who called optimal multipliers, for the GBD and duality theory. Note that the Lagrange multipliers defined here are in general different from the multipliers that satisfy the Karush-Kuhn-Tucker (KKT) conditions, which are usually called KKT multipliers. The image presents the structure of GBD, which is assumed to start from an original nonlinear convex problem. Nonconvex Generalized Bender's Decomposition, NGBD, assuming an original nonlinear nonconvex problem, and the GBD process must be modified to solve NGBD. NGBD lower bounding problem via convexification. Desired separability can be induced by the process of convex relaxation. The original problem, nonconvex MIMP lower bounding problem, convex MIMP or MILP. NGBD primal problem, nonconvex NLP deterministic global optimization solvers based on continuous branch and bound, like Baron, can solve many non-convex NLPs and MIMPs of small to medium size in reasonable times. The primal NGBD problem, a non-convex NLP, is obtained by constraining the sequence of integer realizations that the primal problem visits, such as the integer realizations for which the primal problem was solved. The reformulation of the original stochastic MIMP into a set of subproblems is done by convexification, projection or dualization, restriction and relaxation. The figure summarizes these subproblems and how to obtain them. Subproblems in boxes with dashed lines are intermediate subproblems that are not solved directly in NGBD. Subproblems in boxes with solid lines are solved directly in NGBD, by calling appropriate optimization solvers, including relaxed master problem. NGBD algorithm flowchart. It is important that to update the lower bound we use the relaxed master problem, in any NGBD problem. Finite convergence to a global optimum with a given tolerance is guaranteed. The image shows the algorithm published by Lee, Thomasgaard, and Barton. For the numerical experiments, the computational implementation features are: hardware, 2.83 GHz Intel Xeon CPU with 1 GB RAM on Windows software, GAMS 22.8. Tolerance, 0.001 for global optimization. Solvers used: LP and MILP solver, Plex Global NLP solver, Baron Local NLP solver, SNOPT. Comparison methods: Baron, the state-of-the-art global optimization solver, NGBD, Nonconvex Generalized Bender's Decomposition, and EI, naive integer enumeration. The stochastic problem contains 38 binary variables and 93 continuous variables. NGBD solves a sequence of subproblems whose sizes are independent of the number of scenarios addressed in the problem. NGBD terminates finitely with an epsilon optimal solution, or with an indication of the infeasibility of the problem. The dramatic computational advantage of NGBD over a state-of-the-art branch and reduced global optimization solver, Baron, is demonstrated by the results of the case studies, in which a highly non-convex MILP with almost 150,000 variables was solved with NGBD in 80 minutes of solver time. The results also show that the time to solve the primary subproblems dominates the total solution time, and this time can be reduced by exploiting the solutions of the subproblems solved in previous iterations. Computational results, MILP recourse. The largest scenario, X9, has about 36 million binary variables and 176 million continuous variables. NA means that no solution is returned in 10,000 seconds of CPU time, obtained by solving the MILP and LP models in full space. With full space model, the solution time increases drastically with the number of scenarios. With NGBD, the solution time increases linearly with number of scenarios. Computational study, summary of non-convex problems, all solved up to the global optimum, and with the given tolerances. Some comments. The times are divided according to parts of the SGPS optimization model, and implementation. Parts of the SGPS were run with different CPUs, A, B, and C. Enhanced NGBD with more dual information refers to advanced NGBD methods that significantly accelerate the resolution of complex optimization problems, such as energy systems, incorporating additional primal cuts from the relaxed dual to the master problem, leading to much faster convergence than standard NGBD for large, non-convex mixed nonlinear programs. The key new aspects are: dual information is related to dual variables, Lagrange multipliers, which provide sensitivity information about constraints. Adding these to the master problem helps him learn better boundaries. Primal dual cuts, these are cuts added to the master problem, derived from solving the relaxed dual problem, not just the primal one, by improving the lower limit and accelerating convergence. The enhanced decomposition strategy. A relaxed dual of a primal problem consists of simplifying the primal problem by relaxing some constraints, such as converting integer variables to continuous, then finding their dual, creating easier to solve subproblems, Lagrangian relaxation, or using algorithms that introduce relaxation steps for faster convergence, primal dual algorithms, in areas such as global optimization. The image presents the mathematical formulation of a relaxed dual of a primal problem. An enhanced relaxed master problem, ERMP, is a powerful technique used in Bender's decomposition to speed up the solution of complex integer mixed programming problems by initially solving a simpler relaxation of the master linear programming problem, generating additional cuts to quickly reduce the solution space and find high-quality, feasible integer solutions faster. The core idea is to take advantage of the speed of LP's problems to achieve a strong initial lower limit and many cuts before committing to expensive iterations of full Benders. The cuts generated are called primal dual cuts. The enhanced relaxed master problem using primal dual multiple cuts is a specialized acceleration technique for decomposition methods such as Bender's decomposition and cross decomposition. Its goal is to overcome the computational bottleneck of solving highly complex master problems by simultaneously integrating primal and dual information through multiple cuts. The key point as a strategist is the following. Multi-cut implies that instead of adding a single aggregate cut per iteration, multi-cuts are generated for each individual scenario or substructure. This provides a tighter approximation of the objective function and can significantly reduce the number of iterations required for convergence. Stabilization and interior points. Many implementations use interior points primal dual algorithms to find well-centered, non-extreme dual solutions. This helps avoid the oscillation common in simplex-based methods, and results in deeper cuts that improve the root node boundary and overall stability. This implies the parallel execution of the process. The cuts generated are called primal dual cuts. The diagram shows the flowchart of the enhanced NGBD algorithm. The table shows the problem sizes and optimization results of the case studies prepared by Paul Barton. Computational study, summary of nonconvex problems, all solved up to the global optimum, and with the given tolerances. Some comments. The times are divided according to parts of the SGPS optimization model, and implementation. Parts of the SGPS were run with different CPUs, A, B, and C. Problem sizes and optimization results. Case study. Middle oil price, middle carbon tax, 100% flexibility. Case 1. Number of scenarios 8. Explanation. Day and night in 4 seasons. Horizon planning. Day and night in 12 months. Binary variables 70. Continuous variables 4896. Optimization results. $1122.95. Case 2. Number of scenarios 24. Explanation. Day and night in 12 months. Horizon planning. Day and night in 12 months. Binary variables 70. Continuous variables 14,688. Optimization results. $1124.31. Case 2 results. Methodology, Baron. NGBD. Enhanced NGBD. Multi-cut enhanced NGBD. Comments. Baron, no global solution returned within 48 hours, and in the row of integers visited, we have in each cell the total integers visited, and the number of integers visited by the primal problem. The data are divided according to parts of the SGPS optimization model. The graphs present the comparison of the performance of the enhanced NGBD and the multi-cut enhanced NGBD. The gain in performance is in the order of 22.5. The cases study presented by Li et al. Were solved on a 2.83 GHz CPU, 2 GB of memory, running Linux, and GAMS 23.4. NGBD used Baron 9.0.5 to obtain global solutions for the main subproblems, PPH, where Plex 12.1.0 was used as a linear program solver and CONOP 3 as a local NLP solver. The feasibility problem, FP, minimized used the one norm of the slack variable vector for all the case studies, using the standard smooth reformulation. The major purpose of the case study is to compare the computational efficiency of NGBD and 2 commercial global optimizers in GAMS 23.4, Baron and Linda Global. The relative and absolute termination criteria were set to 0.001. The reported solution times were the solver times reported by GAMS. Since this article does not focus on scenario generation for stochastic programs, it is assumed that all uncertain parameters follow normal distributions and are independent of each other. A naive sampling rule was used to generate scenarios for normally distributed uncertain parameters. In tables 1, 2, and 3, The units are in second solver time and are divided into two types of results: added for all solvers, and detailed for NGBD methodology. In the detailed part, the tables show the numbers of integer realizations visited by problem, PBPH, and problem, PPH, which are also the numbers of iterations in the inner loop and in the outer loop of the NGBD algorithm, and PBPH indicates the size of the largest relaxed master problem solved in NGBD, since the number of cuts is twice the number of such integer realizations. In Table 1, NGBD avoided visiting most of the complete realizations, approximately 15% of the total were addressed by the problem, PBPH. For the other two cases, these values are less than 10% and 15%. The number of realizations does not change significantly with the number of scenarios. The size of the relaxed master problems can be considered independent of the number of scenarios. The speed ratio between NGBD and Barron is 26.0 times faster and increasing. In Tables 1, 2 and 3, notice that not all such integer realizations are visited by problem PPH. In many cases the ratio of the integer realizations visited by problem PPH to those visited by problem PBPH is only about 0.25. This is because in NGBD the solution of problem, PPH, is postponed as much as possible, and the solution of problem PBPH helps to eliminate some integer realizations that will never lead to a global optimum. As a result, NGBD is much more efficient than a naive integer enumeration in which problems PPH are solved for all the integer realizations. Finally, all tables show UBD and LBD at the NGBD termination for all cases. UBD stands for an upper bound as well as an optimal objective value of problem, P. LBD stands for the lower bound of the problem, excluding all the visited integer realizations, so LBD can be significantly larger than UBD at the termination, and LBD equal to infinitum implies that all feasible integer realizations have been visited. In Table 2, the convergence of NGBD is demonstrated by looking at the UBD and LBD values throughout the NGBD iterations for the three case studies. Evolution of UBD and LBD over NGBD iterations for the software reliability problem with 1,331 scenarios. The results show that the time for solving the primal subproblems dominates the total solution time, and this time can be reduced by exploiting the solutions of the subproblems solved in the previous iterations. Since most of the subproblems in an iteration can be solved without exchanging information among them, the performance of NGBD can be further improved by exploitation of a parallel computation architecture. Evolution of UBD and LBD over NGBD iterations for the pump network configuration problem with 1,331 scenarios. The NGBD is not advantageous if a multi-stage stochastic program is formulated into a special two-stage problem with non-anticipation constraints, which equate the decisions in different scenarios and with the same uncertainty realizations in all the previous stages, because then the problem cannot be decomposed for different scenarios by correcting the decisions of the first stage, due to the presence of restrictions of non-anticipation. Tribute to Hernando Duran Castro, my master's professor, in 1975, at the Universidad de los Andes. Nothing is necessary, nothing is enough, everything is useful. Always must learn. I add it. May he rest in peace.